Okay, so first let's go to the React Router 7 documentation here, and I'm gonna show you how to run the script to install the project in our computer. That would be the first thing that we have to do. So just come here, then you got have to go here to new, and then you're gonna see the new documentation. You're gonna see 3 ways of working with React Router 7. Now we are interested in the framework one, in the framework. Sorry, we are interested in the framework one because it's the replacement of Remix. And if you work with React, you're gonna see declarative and the data one, which I think that would be an interesting tutorial comparing the three of them. But yeah, let's click on framework, and then you're gonna see this command, which is this what we want. And I think you can also start with Bit, the project. So yeah, so let's here. Mailchimp.com. And now let's wait. Then we're gonna open the folder with VS Code and yeah, and get started running the local server. We have to install dependencies, so it's gonna be a cool project. We're gonna try to leverage all the power of React Router 7. Initialize a Git repository, yeah, why not? So install the dependencies. Okay, perfect. So we have it. So let's go inside that. Let's trust these guys, and now we have our project. Let's go through the. We have npm. Yeah, we already installed the dependencies. So I would say let's run the project so you guys can see it. Npm run that. Let's copy and paste this URL. Let's go back to the browser. Let's come here, and there you go. We have our project started. Now let's go back and let me walk you really quick through the differences between Remix. The main thing I would say that changed, it's the route paradigm. We have now two. Instead of just having power routes, we can reference our routes here and then from anywhere, basically. So what I want to do is let's do an example so you guys can see it, and then we can compare between, because we're gonna use a combination of the two. So now you can call in route, this method here, route, and then let's import that from React Router, and inside it's gonna take the path. So we're gonna have our login. Let's start with the register here. So we're gonna start with the register route, and then you're gonna put here the file location. So let's have a folder here called pages, and then inside here let's have another folder called login, and inside here register.tsx. Perfect. So now let's reference that path. So it would be pages, and then here login, which is not login, register, and then register.tsx. Okay, good. That's how you reference. You can now reference routes like this. And if you don't like this paradigm, you can always use the flat routes. So declare all your routes inside your routes folder, which is what we are used to with Remix. So let's give it a try to this first, and then we can see the both of them working, since that's how I'm going to start this project. So okay, here let's have an export here, default function. Once you do that, we can see that if we go to this path here, we're gonna go to that route. So, and we can use everything. We can use loaders and action functions and everything the React Router provides. that before was limited to use only inside the routes folder. Now we can use it anywhere pretty much. So let's go here, and now let's go here to register. And now this is the register route. So that was pretty much the big change. Let's now do another one with flat routes so you can see how both of them work. And I also want to show you how you create a layout for all the routes. So let's have a layout here, and the layout here is going to come from let's create a new folder here, components. And then let's and inside here, just like in normal React, you would have to specify the outlet component. So it's going to display all your routes. So this is gonna come from React Router, I guess. And then I need to, we need a wrapper here. So let's copy this guy and this guy here. All right, so that's pretty much it. So let's go here. Let me refactor this really quick now. Creator here, and now inside here we have to specify where it comes from. So here, I think I'm missing a comma here, and now here we're gonna have an array, and inside this array we are going to just destructure or flat routes. Yeah, we need to install the package if you want to keep using that. So we're gonna come here, and then let's npm install React router /fs routes. There you go. So now let's import this guy. Let's save it. Let's refactor this guy here. And now all the routes that come from here are gonna have this layout component. Just pretty much like works the same as React, and yeah, that's it. That's how we specify routes now. So now if we come here to this folder, we can create our routes. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to create my index route. So the home page from all my routes. So let's create here a folder. Let's do /index and then route.tsx. Just like before, and then export default function home here, then return, and then a div here, and then this is the home route. If you go now here and let's see, you're gonna see that we have, this is the home route, which is my home route, and this is the layout for all the routes. And yeah, that's pretty much how we are going to structure the project, okay? All right, so we know about routes now. So now the first thing that we have to do for this project is we're gonna work on my register screen. And the cool thing about React Router 7 is that Tailwind already comes by default. So you go here to the bit file, and you're gonna see the Tailwind plugin. So everything's set up for you already. That's super sweet. So we can start working on that as well, because I'm gonna use Tailwind for this project. So let's specify the minimum height for this entire screen. Here, let's have the PG gray as 100, and then I'm gonna have a border here too. All right, so let's just switch really quick here. We're gonna use border T5 instead of just manually hard coding the pixels. Now inside here, this is the div that's gonna contain our logo. So we're gonna import the logo here from our assets folder. And then just gonna paste this guy here, which is gonna be our logo, and there you go. We have a logo here. Now let's create another div below this one. Now let's put a class here, and now let's keep working on this, right? So we're gonna have a min height, so min height screen. Let's have a flex, let's have items in the center, let's have the justify content, justify center, this one BG gray, so BG gray, and then it's gonna be 100, and then the text is gonna be black. Nice. So inside here, let's have another div. Let's have the class name, and now let's have a width of full. Let's have a max here width of large. Let's have a BG as white. Now let's have a padding here of 14. Here for padding of 14. Let's have a rounded corner of large. Just rounded LG. And now let's have a shadow of large around that. So shadow LG as well. Good. So let's have inside that, or inside this container, we're gonna have a div first that's gonna say sign up to Mailchimp, right? So here, then sign. Put this in capitals, Mailchimp. Okay, so let's style this H2 as well. So class here. Now let's make a text for Excel. Let's have a font of semi-bold. Here. And now let's have a text gray of 100. Text gray 800. And now let's have a margin bottom of 6. And that looks good enough for now. And next we are going to have our div, another div that's gonna wrap our we're gonna have next we're gonna have another div that's going to have, if you have an account, just go ahead and log in. So let's have our div here. Flex, and then PV of 5. Now let's have here p tag, create a free count, or let's have an a tag here. Okay, good. So it's black, which it's already black still. And now this h tag, let's have an href here that's just gonna go to login. And now let's have a class name here, another class name. Let's make it blue so it stands out as a link. So text blue, then 500. Now hover, on hover we're gonna underline it, so underline here. Now font semi-bold, this one, and now underline. Which maybe yeah, that looks good enough for now for use case. Okay, so below these divs, we're going to have our form, right? So let's below this one actually. So let's have a form here, and now let's have the first div that's going to contain our label to enter our email, and then yeah. So let's have a div here. And we're about to create our hook form that we're gonna use creating React hook forms. And yeah, so let's class name MB4 here. Now let's open this div. Now let's create a label. Inside this table, specify here email. Let's open this label here. Let's have the HTML4 email. And now let's have this guy as class name. Let's put a block here. Let's make the text small. Let's font to medium. And now let's make the text grayish. Gray 700. Okay, so that would be the label. So now we're going to specify our input, and I would just do inputs here, but since we're gonna use a form library for this tutorial, let me just put something here in the meantime. Email. So we would use this, but we're gonna use a form library. So let's install those dependencies first. We need to install React hook form, and then we're gonna use the hook form resolver for Zod, so we can have type safety on our forms. So that's what we are going to do now. So let's go here to our terminal. Let's clear this bar here. Now let me look for the package JSON that we have to install. So the first one is React hook form. So just go npm install React hook form. Let me just verify I don't have any typos, and yeah, that's good. Now you need to install the next one because we want to use Zod inside those forms. So npm install, and then out the hook form slash resolvers. All right, perfect. We have it ready. So let's hide this terminal. Now let's go back to our file system, and inside here, this folder, we're going to create a few things. Okay, so this is going to be the pattern that we're going to follow. We're going to have our component, we're going to have Zod here, ts, we're going to have our hook, which is a file here, so hooks.ts, and then we're going to have our types, types.ts. So let's start with Zod, and I did install Zod, right? So npm install Zod. Okay, good. So now let's go here, and now we need to create a register schema. So for this, I guess we can just let me go full screen here. So let's go ahead and export a constant, and then name it register schema or whatever is your use case. And now here we're gonna call Zod that object, and this is not a capital. All right, so here let me hover over, let's import this from Zod, and now inside here you're gonna open a square brackets, and now you're gonna specify what your form is going to contain. So the first thing that we're gonna have is an email. So email, and now let's specify that's gonna be a string here, and this is a function, and now we can say this is gonna be an email here. And now let's open it, and now let's specify if it's not an email, it's going to, this is what is going to trigger. So it's gonna say invalid email format, and here let's specify one more. So let's say it's not empty. That's another verification that we're gonna have, and just put here email is required. So that's set for the email. So now let's have also name, and name similar patterns. So just go here and now specify it's a string, and now we can specify that's non-empty. And now let's this, and now first name is required. We're gonna do the same, so we can copy and paste this guy, and let's do the same for the last name here. So last name is required, and now for the password, so password here, see that it's gonna be a string, and now here we are going to say the minimum. You can specify also the minimum of characters that you want. We're gonna have just 6, and now we're gonna specify that here is non-empty, and if it's non-empty, we're just gonna be like before, so password is required. And inside the minimum property, we can specify another one, the message that's going to trigger in case the user puts less than 6 characters, right? So password must be at least 6 characters. Okay, this is gonna be our Zod schema. Perfect. So now let's create a type for this Zod schema so we can use it across our form. So let's have export type register form data, and now let's have C the infer, and let me bring Zod here. Let's see here, see the infer. Let's see if I can bring Zod now. Alright, so infer here, and now we're gonna specify the type, and I don't need all that. So here, and now we're gonna say it's a type of the register schema. So register schema. Okay, so we're gonna use this type across our application, or at least the register form, so we can specify, we know which types are gonna use for this form: email, name, last name, and the password. Okay, so now let's go here to our form, and now let's create a hook that we are gonna be able to use. So export cons use register form. It's gonna be equal here. And now let's the first thing that we're gonna need is a fetcher. So use fetcher. Now we are going to call in use form. So use form here. And inside a use form, we're gonna have a few things that we are going to structure. So let's open square brackets here. Let's open here the square brackets, and now let's grab a few things that we need. We need the control, this control function here. We need a handle submit function as well. We need the form state, and from the form state we can grab errors. Okay, that which we were going to use as well, and now we can grab the reset function here to reset the form and submission. Now let's specify the type of the form here. So this is where register form data, the type that we specified before, is going to be used. Register form data from types. Okay, now inside here we're going to open square brackets, and now we're going to specify the resolver, and inside here we're going to pass in our Zod resolver function, and here passing the register schema from Zod. Okay, so this is pretty much the pattern that we're gonna use across our forms in this application. This is what I tested for this time, but maybe I'm gonna try something different because I saw a few other options, but I like this one. So yeah, let's keep going. So now since we're not gonna use, we can use we can grab fetcher the loading, the state from the loading, so we don't need a use state for that. So let's open here on submit function. It's gonna be an asynchronous function, and now here form data of the type register form data. Let's open this function here. And this function is going to be triggered. It's going to contain the logic of what we are going to do once we submit this form. So now let's return everything that we're going to return from this hook. Okay, so we can use it. So let's have the control. We're gonna have the handle submit. We're gonna have our errors as well. We're gonna have our own submit here, and we are gonna the loading is gonna come from the fetcher. So let's have our fetcher here, loading states. Let's refactor this, and now inside here, let's trigger what we are going to do. So let's have a try and catch so we can debug this application nicely. So let's have an error here, and inside the error, let's just console log error, and now let's have it finally as well. Or, well, maybe we don't need it finally. Oh, just for messages, so console log here, and register. Yes. Just a little message for us. So now, since I want to test the loading states, I'm gonna have a slight await here. So I just want to test the loading states on the UI. So let's have a promise here and make us wait. So promise. Now it's here. That's parentheses. Resolve. And let's have a set timeout. Let's resolve this guy. Now we're gonna resolve it in 2 seconds. Oh, that's good. So now let's have fetcher that submit, and now let's open here parentheses, and now inside here we're gonna pass the body, and we're gonna submit in the form, and now inside here metadata for the submission. So the action is gonna come here to our API, the register. And we need to create that API endpoint. Now let's have the encryption type. It's going to be multi-form from data. And now let's have the method, which is a post method. Here, post method. Now let's have our body here. And now let's JSON that stringify. And inside here we are going to stringify our form data. So yeah, that's pretty much the hook that we're gonna use. Now let's go back to our UI so we can use those. So let's go here. Let me make my screen smaller. So let's close in the file tree. And now here in our UI we can call in the use form register form. That's the structure. This guy, and now inside here let's grab our control. Let's grab our handle the submit. Let's grab our errors. Let's grab our on submit, and now let's grab the fetcher. Okay, good. Now let's go back and let's continue working on the UI. So for the input, we're not going to use this input. We're going to use a controller component from React hook form. Let's close it, and now we need to pass in a few things. So we need to pass in the name. Let's say it's going to be an email. Let's pass in the control. So passing control here. Let's pass in the render property here. Now this is going to be a function here. So function is going to have access to our fields. And now let's do the content here. And now inside here, we're going to render our input. Okay, so input, let's close it. And now let's field here. So let's say this is gonna be of type email. Let's put the ID as email as well. Let's have the class name here, and now let's do a margin T of 2. Let's have a P of T. Let's have a full width and a full. Let's have a border. Let's have a border gray of 300. Let's have a rounded MD. MD. Let's have a shadow, a small shadow around it. Shadow, small. Let's have a focus animation here. So in focus, let's outline to none. Or now let's have a focus ring of 2, and now focus ring to blue. So focus here, and then ring blue to 500. Okay, that looks good. Now let's have the placeholder. So here the placeholder is gonna be just enter your email. Enter your email. All right, good. Now below here our controller, we're going to, in case that we have some errors, we're going to call in these errors object here, the email. And then if we have errors, we are going to conditionally display here a p tag with a text, red text. So it looks like an error, and then we're gonna pass in what the error is of the message. So you have access to that here from the form email, the message, if I'm correct. Yeah. Now let's have a class name here, and now let's have text red 600. So we are gonna do the same, like I said before. For the first name, we're gonna have another controller for the last name as well, and for the password as well. Okay, so below here, let's have a button, and now let's conditionally we're going to display the state of the button. Okay, but yeah, that's pretty much how the entire flow is going to be here. Let me go above here. So let me have a constant here. It's loading, and now we are going to access the feature state, and now we can go here, right here, and now just conditionally, if it's loading, we're gonna have an equal here to submitting. If it's submitting, we're going to just submit, and then we can put maybe 3 dots here, and then else just register. So let's have a class name here as well. So let me style this guy. So class name. Now the class name, let's have a width of 36. Let's have py of 3. Let's have a cursor pointer. Let's have the PG blue. That's 5 or 700 here. Let's have the text as white. Let's have a font of semi-bold. Let's have a rounded here of 3XL. And then when we hover, let's make it as BG blue here at 600. Now let's focus the outline on none. So focus out for me list, and now we have to last but not least make this guy of type submit. Perfect. Now we have to pass in our submit function here. So let's go here to the top of the form, and now on submit, pass in the handle submit, and inside here you have to pass in our own submit logic we have on our hook. Okay, good. So that would be it for now. And something I forgot before, let me go here to hooks, and we have to clear the form after the fetcher submits. So we have to use the reset function that we specify above. So open here a reset. Now let's have email here as empty, and it's supposed to work. I think it's supposed to work without specifying these fields. Well, it wasn't working for me. It only works when I specify that. So I went to few Stack Overflow discussions, and this was the agreed solution for some people. So that's what I'm using here. Yeah, but it's okay. It's not biggie. So yeah, after this fetcher submits, we are going to trigger this guy. So let me see how everything is working. It's time to test. So submit here, and we're going to, you know what, just open this guy here and open this guy here. Now, as you see, when we try to trigger the form without anything, it's going to give us an error. So let's have some Gustavo here, gmail.com. Let's have Gustavo Smith. And see, if I try to enter 3 characters, it's going to give us the Zod errors that we specified before. So that's pretty neat. So hello world as the password. Now let's see, want to test here. Now as you see, it's going and it's triggering our form here. So let's let me go back to VS Code. Here, and it also clears the form on submission. So that's pretty neat. So now I try to go here, but since we don't have that, we're not gonna see anything. So the way that we're gonna specify our API endpoints, it's just like I've done it in previous tutorials. That's my way to go here in Remix. So let me create a folder here called api.register. And here let's have a route.ts. And now let's have here a folder here called action. Let's have this index.ts as well. And now here let's have our action function. So export default asynchronous function action. And now let's open here this guy, and this is what changed now. So we're gonna have the request just as always, the request object, but now it comes everything from the React router. So we're gonna specify here route the action arguments. That's where the request object comes from. Everything comes from the React router library now. So let's open here this guy, and the way that we are gonna grab our form data is just gonna be like this. So await request the form data. This guy. So console.log form data. Okay, good. Now let me let's save. Let's save and let's go back to here because I want to try it again. So just Okay, so let's go here. Let's go to the server. Where am I running my application? So here. So my bad. So import action from, and now let's go here, action. Okay. Okay, that's annoying. Action and the index. Okay, perfect. And now let's export this action here, so it has access to the route. Now it should work. Let's go back and here. So let's try that one more time. All right, I think that worked. So let's go back here to VS Code. Yeah, we're logging the form data. All right, so perfect. So we're sending the data from the front end to the back end. That's good. Let's see what do we have to do next. I think I'm going to set up Postgres now, because yeah, it's time to register a user and then see it in the database, so we can start building the login the authentication form. So we have to install PG. So npm install PG. Yeah, and I'm not gonna use Prisma. I'm gonna use just Postgres SQL directly. So once you install PG, we have to set up the server. So go here. I like to do it here in this in the main root bar here. So app. So let's open a file here, and I'll call it database the server .ts. Just give 1 second. Now let's support the PGK that comes from PG, and maybe it needs types, probably. Yeah, it needs types. So we have to just copy this guy and now paste it. All right, now we have our types here. Let's destructure this pool object here from PG. So here, our PGK. There. So now let's create our pool object, right? So export this guy. So const pool equal to new, and now let's open this guy here, open this guy here, and now we need to have a few things. So we have to have the user. The user is gonna be just Postgres. Let's have our host. The host is gonna be local host. Let's have our database. The database is gonna call email marketing. Now the password, we are not gonna have a password, so if you don't have a password, you can just leave this empty. And now the port is gonna be 5432, depending on where you are running your Postgres instance. So I think it's a number. Yeah, perfect. So now that we have that, let's go here to models. Now let's have a folder called user, and now this user is gonna have user the server the ts, and this is where we are going to create our methods to talk to the database. But now we haven't created a database, right? So we need to do that using PG. Let's see, we have a terminal. I don't have one, so let's open one here, and sudo eu postgres. Okay, I'm using PSQL as the client here. So this is how I'm going to see my databases and create my database and tables. You would use I think pgadmin is the way that most people use it. I like using it here, but yeah, let's create our database first. Okay, so I created this folder development, and here I'm gonna be leaving the SQL commands for you guys. So if you're following my approach, but you have to do the same on pgadmin. So let's grab this command here, and let's go here, and we are set PSQL, right? Yeah. So let's run this command, and I have a typo here, and we have the database. So if it's L here, you're gonna see the new database here, email marketing. So let's go C into email marketing now. Now we're connected to email marketing. Now we need to create the users table. So let's go back here. Now let's grab this command. Okay, and I have, yeah, I skipped the C, by mistake. So go here, create a table, and perfect, we have a table. So now we can work on everything. So let's go back to VS Code. Let's close all these files here. So let's create that method, right? So export, it's gonna be asynchronous function register user. Now here, let's open this method, and now let's pass in an object that is going to contain everything. So registration data. So register form is going to be of the type register form data, and if you hover over, we're going to see we have access to our types. So yeah, that's nice. Now let's have a try and catch here. Now have a typo here. Sync. Let's comment and recopy this guy. Now let's have a quick if statement here. So if we have something here, I'm just gonna throw a new error here. So all fields are required. So as you see, if we access this registration data, so if we don't have the email, or we don't have the registration, the name here, it's the last name, or let's registration, the password. Okay, perfect. We're gonna throw an error here. So inside the try and catch, we need bcrypt as well, because we have to encrypt our passwords in the database. That's true for security. So let's npm install bcrypt, and it has to be bcrypt JS. Be sure of that, because otherwise this is going to go ballistic. You're gonna have a lot of bugs. So npm install bcrypt JS. Probably needs types as well. Let's just check. So wait bcrypt from bcrypt.js. I think it comes with types by default. Oh, that's good. So let's hash this guy here. So access the hash function and then pass in the registration data, that password, and perfect. So let's specify 10 here for the hash, and now let's call this the hash password. Hashed password. All right, perfect. So now let's create our query. So this is gonna be the SQL query. So that we're gonna use to create our or user, right? So we're gonna insert into users. We have to insert the email. We have to insert the password hash, and this has to match whatever you have here. Okay, it has to be the same. They have to match. So we have to have the email, the password the password hash, the first name, and the last name here. And now the values here, and now we open parentheses, and the values are gonna be all the numbers, right? So 1, and here 2, 3, and 4. Only 4 values, and we're gonna be returning the ID. Return the ID, just to know that everything works. So good. We have our query. Now let's run that query. So we have to call our pool. So query the pool. And now let's import that from the database. So let's access query here. Let's pass in your query. And now inside here, let's pass in the array of things that we're gonna give it. So registration, the data, and we're gonna have the email here. Registration data. Let's pass in the this one is the password, right? So we have to pass in hash password. Now registration to. Okay, make sure I didn't import anything. Yeah. So registration, the data. This is gonna be the first name, just the name, and then registration, the data, and this one's gonna be the last name. So now let's grab in the result. Let's put it in a constant here, and now we can just access the result, and the result is in here. So user ID, it's inside result, inside rows. It's the first row, and then you have access to the ID here. So now we can just return that. So return here. Now let's return an object that has a success of true, and let's return the user ID. And that's pretty much the function that we're gonna use. Let's just verify everything's working. First name, last name. I just want to make sure I have the same values here. Yeah, everything should be working now. Let's go back to the routes. You have to come here, you have to come here. Now we have our form data. We have access to the form data, but we have to we need to access the body because we only have one attribute inside our form data. So let's const body this guy, and now let's form data tag get. Now let's get body here, and now let's do a cast here as a string. Now let's transform this guy. So let's transform body here, which is going to be equal to JSON.parse. And now let's pass in body. So we have it back as an object, and now once it's back as an object, we're going to validate with Zod. So we have that type validation. So let's call in the register schema here, and now let's parse, and now we pass in the object, the transform body object. Now after the validation, we're gonna know this is validated data. So const validated data here. And now it's gonna be type saved, and we're gonna have here all the type completion here. Now let's pass in that to our method, right? So wait register user. Now we can pass in this guy, and perfect. Now let's grab here const response. Now let's just return the response, right? So return response. Now let's save, and let's leave this here in case. So now we can try it. So let's go back to here. Let's refresh. Now hopefully it works. So let's have gustavo@gmail.com. Smith and then hello world. Okay, so let's go back. Want to see my logs. I think it worked. So if it worked, we should have this in the database. So let's see BT. We have users. So select everything from users. And yeah, we have our user here. Everything's working perfectly. So now we can go ahead and work on the authentication part. So we are going to work on the login component, and since it's pretty much the same as the register component, let me just show you how you go about it. All right, so go here, and the first thing you have to do, since we are not gonna use, when you're not using flat routes, you just have to create the route function here, and then we're gonna specify the path, and then the path to the file, right? So we created this folder here, login, and this is the component. Let me go here, and this is the login component. As you see, it's pretty much the same. Let me go back here, and now this is the login component. And well, you're gonna see the here's the UI. We're using the controllers from our hook, from our form hook, and it's just pretty much the same as before. And now if you go to the hook here, well, let's go here first to Zod, and the login schema is going to be just an email and a password. We're going to have a type for that login schema, and then the hook, we're going to have fetcher in order to trigger our API or API endpoint, and then we're going to use the use form, then passing the login schema here to the solid resolver, so we have type safety on our form, and then the structure, the control, the handle to main, the form errors. Now let's call in the fetcher, and then we're gonna trigger this endpoint that we have to create yet, then reset the form, and then return everything here so we can use those on our component, right? So let's take a look again to here, and yeah, this is pretty much it, because I have to create a few helpers for our login authentication. We're gonna use cookie sessions for this tutorial. So this is the routes, everything pretty much on our design. Let me close everything here. On our design, all the flat routes are gonna be gatekept. So for authentication, so that's what we're going to do. So I have to create a navbar and a sidebar that are gonna be together for the design of the Mailchimp UI. So that's the first thing that I have to do. All right, so let's put this outlet inside here, and now let's have this class name here, and now let's have a flex. Then we're gonna have a logo. Yeah, we're gonna display our logo. Okay, so let's have a div here. I'm gonna have an empty div here because I need to have some height. So class a height, and this is perfect. This is just a cheat for me. And now let's have another div here, and this div, let's have a class name here. Let's have flex items in the center. Now let's have a space x of 4 between them, and now here let's have a form. But well, I'm not gonna put the form yet. That eventually we're gonna have a form here. This is just gonna have our logout button. Let's have a class name here, and now this logout button, let's specify the styles. Okay, so let's have for the class, let's make it text blue 500. Let's make the text small. Let's hover and make the BG gray. BG, okay, typo here, BG gray, That's 200. Let's have a cursor pointer here. Let's have a footer, and then the footer blue here of 500. Now px4 py1, and then the rounded for XL, and that looks good. So that's gonna be the logout button. Now we need the avatar. We're gonna have an avatar for checking our profile and stuff. Well, it's gonna be next to this part, but I'm not gonna put it yet. Let's work on the this looks good enough for now. Let's work on the sidebar. So the sidebar is gonna be here. So we need to create that component. So let's go here, and then have sidebar.tsx. Now let's just have a constant sidebar. Let's make an arrow function here. Now let's return. Let's have a div here. Now let's go below here. Now export default. Alright, good. So we have our sidebar, so let's style it. It's not gonna be that complicated here, so let's just have a class name here. Now let's have a flex column. Flex column here. Let's have a width of 64. Let's have VG of white. Now let's have a text black. Now the H screen, so occupies all screen, and now the shadow. The shadow is gonna be empty. Shadow empty. Let's see what we get here. Yeah, that looks good. So let's go inside the div, because we're gonna have another div on top here. This is a column, remember? So let's have an image. So an image, the logo of everything. So let's have class name here. Let's have a flex. Let's have items, center. Now let's have a justify center here, and now the shadow is empty. Inside here, let's have an image. Now we need to import the logo here, so import image from, let's go here, let's go assets, and now it's this one. Now the source, let's open here, and now let's put the image here, and that looks good enough, but we have to style it first. So let's put the alt as logo, and now let's make the height, and the height is 8, and now the width is gonna be out to here, and yeah, that looks good. Let's have a class name here. The class is going to be flex.column. Now let's have a p4 here. Now the space between them, the space y, is going to be here as 2. So the first item in the column is going to be a link. We're going to have a create button, so link from React router, and now let's have here a 2. We're not going to go anywhere yet, so let's have a div here, and now let's have create here. Now let's have the class name inside create. Now let's have a text, a blue of 500. Let's make the text small. let's hover over this guy, and now let's make pg the gray that 200. Now let's have a cursor point there. Let's have the footer, and now the footer is blue. Let's have the px is 6, py is 2, and now let's have it rounded for Excel. That looks good. Okay, let me check this. Okay. Alright, well, I'll fix that in a second. Okay, that's good. So that's the div for here. Now let's have links, because we're gonna have a few other links. So have another link here. Let's have 2. This one is just gonna go here to the home page. Now let's have a class name on our divs. Now let's have just the hover here, and now it's gonna be grayish, so gray that 200, and now the padding is gonna be 2, and here let's just have home. Now let me copy and paste these guys. Now paste it a few more times. So this one is gonna be home, this one is gonna be campaigns, this one customers, okay, this one templates, and integrations. All right. Okay, so now that we have our layout for the entire application, let's go over what we have for now. We have our login form, we have our sign up form, and then we have the entire layout for the entire application. So now let's go back just to VS Code, and now let's work on the authentication part. Okay, so let's go here to the user, the server, and we need to create a few helpers that's gonna help us achieve this. So first we need to have an export function, export asynchronous function to get the user by the ID. So get user by ID here. Now let's have a user ID. Let's pass in, this is a number. Let's put this guy here. Let's have a try and catch. Cancel the lock, error here. All right, so here let's we have to specify a query. So const query. Now let's here select everything from the users where the ID is going to be equal to the number 1, which is the representation of the user ID that we're going to pass. And yeah, so that's first the thing. So then the result, we're gonna store it here. Now let's await pull the query. Now passing the query just like we did with the previous method here. And now let's pass in the array of the things that we're gonna pass, so the user ID. And now let's return, which is gonna be the results, the row. Okay, row, and now it's going to be the first row that contains that user ID there. So yes, that's pretty much here for this helper. We need to create a few others. So let's get the user ID by email. We need something similar to this, so we can copy this guy. So get user ID by email. And now let's pass in here email here. This is going to be a string. Now this is going to be just, we're not going to select everything, just the ID here from users where the email here. Now let's pass in here email. And now let's have a little check here. Didn't check, so here if the result, the rows, the length here, it's equal to 0, that means we have error here. So let's just return null. Else we're gonna return here the first ID here. Okay, so that's gonna be the helper to get the user by ID by email. So now let's have another helper to get the user password by ID. So similar to these other helpers, okay. Let's see, get user password by ID here, user ID. This is gonna be of the type number. Let's put this guy user ID. Let's modify the query. So let's select the password hash here, and then it has to be from users, and instead of email, the ID here. Now we can leave this check here, and now we're not gonna return the ID, just the first row. And yeah, that would do it from this one. And now we need to create another helper. So let's copy this guy here. Let's get the user by email. So get user by email. Let's pass in the email here. Let's put the email here. Now let's select the ID. We're going to select a few things. So let's see the ID. Let's select the email. Let's select the first name, and then the last name. And then from users, where the email, it's equal to the email that we pass here. Now we pass in the email. We are going to, we don't need this check here, or you can use the check, I'm not going to use it. And now we're going to return the first result. And now that's it. Now we need the last helper. Let's just come here. And now this one is going to be to verify the login. So verify login here. And now we're going to pass in the, before I forget here, this is the string. This is the string here. We're going to pass in the email and the password. Okay. So this one is going to be a string as well. So let's delete all these here. And to verify the login, the first thing that we have to do is get the user by ID. So let's await. Now let's get the user by email, and then pass in the email. And now let's have the const user ID here that we're gonna return if we have it. Now let's have a little check here. If we don't have the user, let's just return null. Now let's check the password. So await, get user password by ID here. So let's pass in the user ID. Now let's have this guy, so const user password. Now we need to check again. So just to verify this, if we don't have the password, let's return null. Now let's decrypt the password. So let's await here. So decrypt that compare. And now we're going to pass in the password here. And now the user okay, this guy user password, the password hash. So we're gonna compare the password hash by the user password that we passed here. Now let's have a const is valid here. So we're gonna return a boolean here. So if it's not valid, let's return null too. So So if it's faulty value, we're just gonna return null. Else we're gonna return the get user by email. So get user by email here. Now we can have the email, passing the email here, and yeah, that was the helpers that we're gonna use for authentication. Let's go back here to our entire application here. Let me close these files. Let's create a folder called services. Now in my services folder, let me create sessions.server. Session server.yes, and inside here we're gonna have the session helpers that are gonna help us accomplish authentication for this application. So we're gonna need first session secret, and this would go to environment variables, but I'm not using it that I'm not gonna use them today, so we can just have this session secret here. And now we're gonna call in the method create cookie session storage that comes from React Router. Create, let's see, we can have this guy here. I was over there. Create cookie session storage. Nice. So we're gonna open parentheses here, and it's gonna have an object inside. Let's store this guy. So const, we're gonna have to export this guy in case const export session storage. And now here let's pass in the cookie property here, and now the cookie property is gonna have a few properties, right? So let's name it session. This is what's gonna be stored in our browser. Let's make the cookie HTTP only as true, so it can not be accessed via JavaScript, so it's secure. Let's have the path here as a slash. Let's forget a comma here. Let's have the same side here, same side as lags here. Let's have the expires. Okay, so the expires, let's have a new date here. Now let me put the date, the now function here. Now let me put this plus 60 plus, or it's plus 60 times 60 here times 24 times 7 times 1,000. Okay, yeah, that would be 7 days. So let me put a comment here, 7 days. Now let's have the secrets here, secrets, and that is gonna be the array session secret. And now let's have secure here. See, secure, let's you would do something like this in production. It process the EMB, the node EMB is equal to production. So this cookie would be secure if it's only when it's production, and it's not recommended for testing. So okay, so that would be the create cookie session that we're gonna call whenever we logged in, so we can create a cookie. So now below here, let's have another constant. So this is gonna be the user session key. Now let's just have that as user ID. Now let's create a function or helper to get the session. Okay, so sync function get session, and now let's pass in the request object, the request. Now cookie is gonna come here from the request, the headers that get the cookie, headers that get, and that's gonna be the cookie. Now we can return this guy, and now let's call in session storage that get session, and passing the cookie. All right, so for first helper, now let's create another helper to get the user ID. So let's export sync function, get user ID here, passing the request object. So here, let's get the session first. So const session here, it's gonna be await, get the session, passing the request object here. Now let's grab in the user ID from the session. So session that get, and you would get this with the user key. And now we can grab in the user ID here. So user ID. Now we are gonna return the user ID. Return user ID. Let's refactor. Now we need to create, this is gonna be the method to gatekeep the application. This is gonna be, I'm gonna use this on the layout of the entire application. So gatekeeps. So require user export sync function. Okay, let me sync. Passing the request here. Type request. So let's have const so here let's have const user ID. That's going to come from a method that's going to be require the user ID. So we have to create a method. So hold on, let's this guy here, require user ID here, and from the request, let's do this part here. Now let's wait and then get the user ID here, and passing the request. Let's const user ID, grab the user ID. Now we're gonna check if we don't have the user ID. We are going to redirect. So throw a redirection, and the redirection is gonna be to login. Else we're gonna just return the user ID. Now we can use this require user ID here and pass in the request. Now that we have the user ID here, for the gatekeep method, we have to get the user by ID. So await get user by ID here, passing the user ID. Now const user, and now let's check. So if user, we're going to return the user. Else we're gonna just throw wait logout function that we're gonna create in a second. So here logout, now passing the request here, and let's go back here. So now let's create a logout method, but we need to create a user session method as well before that. So let me export sync this function, create user session. Let's open an object here. And now we're gonna pass in the request. We're gonna pass in the user ID here. We're gonna pass in remember. And this is, I'm gonna show you in case you want to allow the functionality to remember your login. So redirect to there. let me put the types of everything here. So the types of the request is gonna be request. The type of the user ID is gonna be a string. Type of remember is gonna be a boolean. Remember. And redirect to. So it's going to be a string. Alright, so const session is going to be await the get session, passing the request. Now let's return here redirect. Now let's open this guy, so let's redirect to, and now here let's open this object, and in this object let's set the headers with the cookie. So we have to put here set cookie. Now let's await this guy session storage that commit session. And now let's open parentheses here, let's put the session, and now let's open an object, and now let's put the max age here, and now let's pass in remember. And if it remembers, we're gonna have the 7 days clause to remember. So 60 times 60 times 24 times 7. Else we're gonna have undefined and one remember. So set the cookie here. And that's pretty much it. So yeah, this is gonna be the final method to create the user session. So now we need to create finally the logout method. So export async function logout, passing the request. So const session here, and now the session wait get session, passing the request. Now we need to clear our destroy the session. So let's await session storage that destroy the session. Now passing the session. Now let's const set cookie header. Now we need to set a new header. So let's return redirect. Let's redirect to log in. And inside here open the object, and now let's put headers here, and now let's set the cookie. Now let's set cookie header. All right, so we have our helpers to log in. Everything's ready now, so we need to create the API endpoint for the login. So let's have API.auth, or for authentication. Let's have a route here, route.ts. Before I forget, let me copy this guy. Now let's have an action. Index.ts, let me come here. Let me copy this guy. Okay, so we have to create our endpoint API out, but before that, let me go to layout, and here I'm gonna create a loader because we want to gatekeep the layout, all the routes inside the routes folder. So let's have a sync here, function loader. Let's have the request object here. Let's go in route. Yeah, it's route dot loader arguments. Let me import this guy. And now here, let's open it, and now let's await. Now let's require user. There you go, passing the request, and let's just return null. And if we go, let's test this guy, and as you see, we get redirected because we don't have a user. So if we try to go to any route that's not the user one, this one, we're gonna be redirected to login, but we can go to register. So all right, we have our gatekeep working. Let's come back here. Let's go here. Now inside the index, the route, we have to do a few things. Since I want to test my loaders as well, so let's promise. Let's have a result here. Our function, let's set a timeout. And then passing the result. Now 2 seconds. Good. So now let's const form data equal, let's await request the form data. Now let's const body here, and now form data get body as a string. Perfect. Now let's JSON parse that guy, parse the body here. So const transform body here. Now we need to verify that, so log in the schema, the parse, passing transform body here. So const validate data, validate. All right, so we have the validated data, so that's pretty much what we did on the register. So now let's have a remember. You would pass in from your form. I'm just gonna hard code it here, but this would be kind of a toggle on your login form. If it's on, we're gonna set that to true so we remember. So yeah, so now let's have the redirect. So redirect to after a successful login. So save, calling the save redirect function, and then form data get. And now let's redirect to here, or we redirect just to the main route, or the whatever we passing from the redirect to from the form, but we're not passing anything, so we're just gonna go directly to the slash route, so to the home route. And now let's have a try and catch here. Let's have a try and catch the console, the log error. Let's return null here. Now let's have a try. Inside our try and catch, we first have to verify the login. So, and this is await and verify the login here. Now we need to pass in the validated data email and the password. So validated data password. Once we have that, we're gonna have a user return here. And if we don't have the user, so if user, let's just return here an object status for 1. Now let's pass in data here and then maybe message. Invalid email or password. Okay, else let's return here, and now let's create our user session. Create user session. Let's open the object. Now let's pass in the redirect to. Let's pass in the remember function here. So let's check if remember is equal to on. We're gonna have true, else we're gonna have false. Let's pass in the request. And now let's pass in the user ID. user.id. Okay. Let's save this, and that would be pretty much it. That should help us log in successfully to our application, so we can test this. All right, so let's go and test here. Let me refresh. Yeah, it's running. Let's what's the name? It's gustavo@gmail.com. So let's just type it. So here, gustavo@gmail.com. Now the password is hello world. Now let's log in, and it works perfect. So let's save it, and now let's open here the developer tools, and now let's go here to storage, and you're gonna see that this is the cookie that we store. So let's refresh everything here, and the cookie is still here. And then what happens if we delete the cookie and refresh? You get redirected back here to the login, as you see, and everything's working perfectly. So let's delete this guy, delete this guy, let's put this guy here, login. All right, so we have our login and authentication working perfectly. Now we can work on the next part of the tutorial. So we're gonna integrate Shopify to this application. So let's go ahead and do it. Okay, so let's work on the authentication part for Shopify. The first thing that we have to do, let's go here to the development folder. Let me go here to models. We're gonna have a session table that we're gonna create, because we're gonna store our access token that we're gonna get after the authentication flow. We're gonna store the store and the scopes as well, so we can use this session and this token to make authenticated requests to Shopify. So you will have to come here to your PostgreSQL and then just create the table. Let's see if the table was created, and yeah, we have our sessions table. That was the first step. Let's go back. Let's close this. Now the next step that we have to do here is we have to create a method to create a session. So let me go back here. Let's have sessions here. Let's have session the server dot yes. And now let's create the session. So it's gonna be export sync function. Oh boy, export the sync function. And the function is gonna be create session. Okay. So here, let's pass in a few things. We're gonna pass in the user ID. I'm gonna pass in, okay, it's a string. We have to pass in the access token. And then this is gonna be a string. Let's pass in the store, which is gonna be a string as well. And then pass in the scopes, which is gonna be a string as well. Now let's, inside the body, let's have a try and catch. Console.log error here. Now let's have a query constant here. Now inside the query, let's insert into sessions. Let's pass in everything, the user ID. passing the access token, passing the store, and then passing the scopes. Now the values, capitals here, values here, let's pass in the 4 values, so 1, 2, and 4, and now we are gonna return the ID, so returning ID. Okay, let me see if I don't have any typos. Access token. Okay, yeah, everything's good. So now let's call await the pool, the query, passing the query here, and now here open an array here, and now passing your user ID, passing the access token, passing your store, and then scopes, const a result from this operation. Okay, let's have the result. Let's grab the user session ID in a constant, so it's session ID here, result, the row, okay, the first one, and then the ID, and now we can just return success equal to true, and then return the session ID. All right, perfect. That was the next step. We have to create a function to create our session table in our database. So once we have these, we are gonna have another function to get the session by user ID, so we can use that session and access the token. So let me have that export async function get session by user ID here, passing the user ID, which is gonna be a string. Let's have a try, and we have a typo here. Sync. Cancel the lock error. Now let's have a query, seconds, query here, and the query, let's select everything from sessions where user ID is gonna be equal to, okay, to the ID, right? So just making sure I don't have any typos. Yeah, so now const result, let's equal to await the pool, the query, passing the query, and then passing here the user ID. Now we can return the first row in the result, return result, the rows, okay, 0. Okay, that's pretty much it. So now we have access to the session. Now let's work on the next steps. So let's work on the UI first. So I want to create a route here called integrations. So let me have a folder here, call it integrations.index, then route.tsx. Now let's go somewhere here. Now let's copy this guy. Integrations. The integrations. Let's have a class name here. Text black. Now let's go here. Oh yeah, I have to set up the sidebar too. When we go to integrations, we want to go to integrations. Okay, save it. Let's go here. It's refreshing case. Integrations, perfect. So now that we're here, let's create the UI for the authentication flow. And let's go back. Oh good, I have so many things open here, so let's close them. All right, so in the integrations part, let me see what we have to do. So let's return this. Okay, so inside here we're gonna have a main div, about the text is gonna be black. That's good. So let's have the minimum height here. So a screen, so captures the entire screen. Let's have flex, let's have items, the center. Now let's have justify center. Okay, now here let's I'm going to conditionally display, I'm going to conditionally display if we have a session. So let me show you how, because if we're logged in, I don't want to show the login form. So function loader, and let's put this guy here, and now let's access the request. Now route the loader. Let's import these guys. So now let me see. I have a method to get the user ID, right? Here. Oh yeah, so it's await require user here, passing the request, and if there's a user, it's going to return the user object. So user, and now we can use that user object to access our ID, which is pretty convenient for us in this use case. So let's await. Let's get the session by user ID, and then passing this guy. So make sure it's a string. So user, the ID here. Now const the session equal, and now let's return the session. Okay, good. So now let's access the loader data. Data here. Now this is how you access the loader data now. So route the component props. Now we can have the session here. Session, which is gonna come from the loader data. Now let's conditionally display that. Right, so if we have let's open square brackets here. So we don't have a session. Actually, we're going to have one design, else we're going to display another design here. So let's work on the case that we don't have a session, right? So div, okay, div here. Now let's put this guy here too. All right, so we don't have any more errors. So let's open the class name here, and now let's width the full, let's max the width, the MD. Now let's do the BG, the white, P6, and then round it as large. And now the shadow is gonna be large as well. All right, so now let's have a wrapper. We're gonna have a wrapper here for our image. We're gonna have an image from Shopify. So let's have an image here, and I forgot the wrapper. Okay. So in the class name from the wrapper, let's just flex, justify center, and let's have a margin bottom of 6. Okay, here. Now the image. Import this image. Import import image from assets. Now let's have one that's Shopify. I don't remember what's the name, so let's check. Okay, should be one of these. This image is the PNG. Good. Image here, let's alt Shopify logo, so we give it a description, and now let's have the class name here. So the width is gonna be 25 and the height is gonna be 28. Let's go back. All right, good. Now let's below this div, let's have another one, or just an H1. Just keep it simple. And now here, authenticate with Shopify. Now the class name is going to be text 3XL. Let's have the font to semi-bold. And text in the center, and the margin bottom was 2. Okay, that looks good. Now let's have a button here below this guy. So let's just do a div. So here div, and now this div is gonna be logged in. And now let's wrap this div in link tag. Okay, so link from React Router. Let's wrap this guy here. Paste it. And now let's have a 2 here. Now the 2 is gonna be the redirect URL. And let me go here. Const redirect URL, and it's gonna be equal to. I'm gonna explain this authentication flow because it can be confusing. App the launch, and then here let's specify the shop as params. So let's inject this shop here. So our shop is gonna come from there you go. We need to grab this shop. I'm gonna bring it in 1 second. So for now, let's just const shop, so we don't have any errors. But yeah, we're gonna bring our shop statically. Now let's redirect URL. Good. Now let's put the class names here for the button. So what we're gonna have here, so let's have with full now let's have the py of 3. Let's have a text white. Let's have a rounded MD here, medium, bg grade of 100. Cursor pointer, and now on hover. Okay, let's make bg gray 700. Okay. Alright, that looks good enough for now. But we are almost done here. Let me just finish with the design when we are not when we are authenticated. Sorry. So let's here we're gonna have a image as well. So let me just, you know what, grab this image here, and we're gonna paste it here. Now let's have this p tag here, and then authenticate it. Now we can have a class name here. Now let's just do a simple text to Excel. Let's have a font bold, MT5, and MB of 5 as well. And now let's have a button here, very deep, that is gonna say just a disconnect account. Disconnect. Make it red so it looks like disconnect button. Text red 500. Text small. Now when we hover over, let's underline it. Underline this guy and then cursor pointer. Okay, good. So we have to style this div as well. So let's with the full text black, max width as MD here, BG white. Let's have a padding of 20 here. Let's have rounded, large. Let's have the shadow 2 as large. Now have flex call. Okay, let's have the item center and then justify center. Item center and justify center 2. Okay, that's good. We are ready with the UI. So now let's go over some of the explanation, because it can get complex, but not really. So we have a shop here, and then whenever we click the button login, we're going to be redirected to this API endpoint, API.app launch, that we're going to create, and we're going to pass in the shop. Okay, so usually if you want to just gonna pass in the shop here to a constant just for simplicity, but you can have a form here where you have a user passing their shop, and then every user is gonna use their unique shop, of course, because we need that in order to authenticate to an application, to a store. Okay, so that's the first thing. Let's create the API endpoint that we need. So let me close all this junk, close all these junk. Now let's just create a file here. So let's call it API, now capitals, API the app that launch. All right, so API the app / launch it. Okay, so just making sure I don't have any typos here. And this is where we are going to be redirected. So this is going to be a loader. So let's grab this loader from over here. Let's import this guy. Okay, so this loader, let's have a try and catch here. Try, catch, error. So once you click the login button, we're gonna come here, okay? And here we are going to generate a redirect URL that's gonna take us to the Shopify authentication server, so we can accept the authentication. Okay, so let's console the log error here. I'm gonna create that in a second, but we're gonna have a few things that we're going to pass. So just this nonce null, ignore it. It's just const scope. Then the scope, I'm gonna pass in the scopes that you want to use, since you can pass in products, you can pass in write products. In this application, we're gonna use customers, so I need to pass read customers, and then also write customers. I actually don't need write customers, just read customers, but in case. So you pass in your scopes like this. Now let's have the access mode here, and now let's have an array here, and then put here per user. Now let's create the function. Okay, so let's save this. Now let's go here to our servers, and now this one is going to be our Shopify server, or Shopify server.ts. And from here, let's grab this shop. We can export this guy. Okay, so in this Shopify server files where we are going to have all the methods that we need. Okay, so the first one is going to be the generate the installation direct URL. So export const here and generate install redirect ready your URL. Here, let's specify this is going to return a string, just to be state the obvious here. And here let's have the shop as a string. We're gonna pass in the scopes as an array, so string. Here, let's see what else we're gonna pass in. None here is null, and then we're gonna pass in the access mode as a string array as well. Okay, so we have those. Now let's create that. So first thing, I want to join the scope, so I wanna make them a string. So scopes, these scopes that join here. Now let's join them like this. Scopes, scopes, string. Okay, so first we process that. Now let's const redirect URL equal, let's return redirect URL. Now let's access mode the access mode has to also be converted to a string. So this guy, passing this guy here, access mode string. And now let's specify our string here. So we need to pass in this URL address. We're gonna need some space here. So it's HTTPS. So HTTPS / you're gonna pass in here your shop. Now we have to be /admin /OAuth /authorize. Then here it's gonna be client ID, and in the client ID equal, we're gonna pass in our scopes, or no, not really. The client ID is the, okay, we need now the Shopify API key and the Shopify secret key. Okay, before I forget that. And also we need the name of the shop that we're gonna use. So let's we have to go to Shopify now. Let me have to create these constants for now. So Shopify API key, and now const Shopify secret. Now here the Shopify client ID is the Shopify API key. So let's go really quick inside here to Shopify. Now we're gonna create an application. Just go here. Let's create manually, and Mailchimp clone. Let's create this guy. Let's okay, this is the client ID. Let's copy this guy. Let's go to VS Code, and let's grab the secret key. Okay, now our shop, the shop that we're gonna use, let me go back, I don't really remember. It's the name of the store I want to use. Okay, it's this one. So let's copy this guy. Okay, now let's go ahead here, and I don't have the password. Anyways, let's we'll figure that out in a second, no worries. Let's go ahead here to Chimp Clown, and we're gonna have to configure something else as well. We're gonna have, since this authentication process has to be done via HTTPS, you're gonna need ngrok. So we're gonna have to create a tunnel from our local host to the ngrok server, so I can talk to Shopify, and I'll show you that in a second. But let's finish the method now that we have everything that we need for now. So okay, we pass in the client ID. Now we have to pass in, and we have to pass in the scopes. So here scope is gonna be equal to passing the scope string. Now, and we have to pass in the redirect URL. Where are we going to redirect right now? We have to create that as well. So redirect URI is gonna be equal to okay, so let's create that constant now as well. So let's have this const. The redirect URL is gonna be our API. So now I need to const API. I need to start ngrok now so I can show you. So let me const redirect URL is gonna be equal to this API. And now the redirect URL const installed redirect URL is gonna be equal to redirect URL API that Shopify OAuth, and we have to this is where we are going to access grab our access token from the authentication server. We still have to create this endpoint. So I know it's a lot of things, but just bear with me. Install redirect URL here. Now we need to store the ngrok server. Oh boy, so let's go here. Let's start, and now let's go back here, and I'm gonna show you how. You have to come here, and you have to go to ngrok, and then you have to install ngrok. This is how you do it in Ubuntu. And now you have to create the tunnel. So my application is running on 5173. So let's come here, and 5173. Give it 1 second. Okay, good. Now let's go here. Okay, let's visit the site. Alright, so now we're blocked. I think this is because of bit. So we have to come here to this part of the application. Let's go to here to bit. Now we have to just do a little configuration here on the server. So just open here server, open here. Now you have to allow the host, and now it's an array actually. Now we can pass in the URL from ngrok that we're getting here. So it's this one, right? All right, now it's working. Good. So now that we have this ready, let's passing this URL to our API. So now you can grab it with HTTPS. So let's go here. Let's go here. All right, so this is gonna be the address of our API. So let's save it. Now, okay, I think I have to, in order to test this, okay, few things that we're doing here. Okay, we don't need this anymore. So Gustavo@gmail.com and hello world. Alright, we're logged in. Let's go here to integrations. Okay, so that was weird. Let's see why it's this break in here. Routes. Let's see. Shop. I think this is because it's coming from a server file. You're not supposed to use a server file inside that front-end file. It's probably why. Let's just hard code it here. That's probably the problem. Let's go back to our server here. Where are you, man? Here. Yeah, that was a problem. Okay, anyways, you would import that from the EMBs, or you don't even have to import that from EMBs. Your user is supposed to pass it from here. So yeah, so let's go back here. Now let's go back to the Shopify server, and let's keep going because we still have to create this URL. Now it's huge, but this is how you authenticate. Now we need to pass in the state and then grant the options. So I think that's optional, but that's how I have it. I've done it before in the past, so I'm still gonna do it like that because it's how it works. So state, and here the state, let's pass in nonce. And now here, let's put a none here, and now grant options. Here, open this empty array, and now inside here, equal to access mode string. Okay, so that's pretty much it here. And now we are going to return this direct URL. So let's use this function in our API here. So we are opening it, passing everything that we have to pass here. Okay, so we have to pass in the shop. We have to pass in, okay. So let's see if I can access the shop from the server. Shop, passing the scopes, passing the nonce here, and then also passing the access mode. Scopes is plural. Alright, so const redirect URL, and then we're going to redirect this URL. So let's return. Now let's call in, okay, redirect from Remix or React router. Now let's pass in the redirect URL here. All right, that would be the first part. I have a nice graph here. So this is our UI. Once we click on login, we're gonna be redirected here, and then Shopify is going to redirect us back here to a page where we are going to accept the authentication flow, which is gonna grant us a client ID, which we're gonna use back to do another GET request to the authentication server to access the access token. And if it's valid, we're gonna be return the access token. We're gonna store it on our session, and then we're gonna use the access token in order to request resources, protected resources from Shopify. That's how the entire flow would go. I like this graph because it describes exactly what happens. It's 3 steps. So Yeah, let's go back here, and now we have to create our other endpoint. So now we have, this is the redirected endpoint. Now we have to go to the API Shopify. So API the Shopify auth, let's name it whatever you want. And this one, and this endpoint is also going to be a loader, so we can reuse actually some of the logic from here. Everything. Let's grab these guys here. Let's grab these guys here. Now, before we forget, let's go to our Shopify partners, and let's go here. Now we have to pass in our authentication, not authentication, or URL. Our application URL is this one, so we have to specify it here. And now inside here, this is the endpoint where we are gonna be granted our access token. And for us, it's not auth, it's Shopify auth is the endpoint that we're creating right now. So API the Shopify auth, API the Shopify auth. So let's save it. Okay, good. Now let's go back to the application, and now here from once we're redirected back here from the params, let me const URL equal new URL request the URL, and now from here we have to grab actually the shop. So URL the search params. Now let's search params the get the shop, and now we also have to grab in the authorization code. So URL the search params the get the code here. Okay, so once we have this code, and then with this shop, this is the code that we are gonna get after we accept the authentication flow. Now we can create or authenticate method and then request the access token. So let's go back to our Shopify server. And in the Shopify server, let's create a method that's gonna be the authentication method. So let's come here, and now let's have export sync function authenticate. Okay, let's open it. Now we have to pass in two things, the shop and the code. So the shop is going to be a string, and the code is going to be a string. Now let's have a try and catch here. Okay, so now let's we need the URL. So how do you get the access token? Where do you request it? So you're gonna request it here. So HTTPS / you pass in your shop, you go here to admin, you go here to auth, and then you go here to access token. Okay, this is the URL. Now let's create the payload object. So payload, let's open square brackets here. Now let's pass in the client ID, which is the Shopify API key. We need to pass in the Shopify secret, so client the secret, Shopify secret. And now we have to pass in the authorization code. Okay, so now inside the try and catch, let's have a fetch, a request. So fetch, pass in the URL, and now let's open square bracket here. Now specify the method as post. Let's pass in the headers. So inside the headers here, let's have a content, the type, application.json. Okay, now let's have the body here. Now the body, let's just JSON stringify it. not passing body here, or not body, it's a payload, right? Yeah, payload. Perfect. Now let's grab the response. Now let's just do a regular check here. If the response is not okay, let's just throw new error here. And now let's have a failed authentication. Else, let's const data here, await the response.json, and the response.json, the data has the token. So let's just data the access token. Perfect. Save it, and now this is the authentication method that we're gonna use now. So let's go back to our API, and here let's call authenticate from Shopify, passing here the and then here we're gonna pass in the shop. Let's pass in the shop and then pass in the code. Now here let's have in capitals the access token. And once we have the access token, we need to store it. So let's await and create a session. Create a session. Models the session. Yeah, we created before that on Postgres. And now let's we need to pass in the user ID. And yeah, so we need to, let me go here. Now let's come here. Required user, user ID. Let's pass in the access token. Now let's pass in the shop, and let's just hard code these guys though for now. Read customers, and read and write customers. So once we create a session, let's return a redirection again. So redirection, and that redirection is going to be to the redirection URL. It's redirect this one just to our main application here. Am I exporting this guy? I think I'm not. So export, save this guy, let's come here, let's export this guy. Okay, perfect. So that should work. That's the entire flow to it, and let's test it. Let's see if it's working. Let me just make sure I have everything here. Just make sure everything matches here. This is really important. Your URL, your redirection URL, and then your API keys. I have to match. Oh yeah, have to set up this store. So log in here. Nice. Didn't have to do anything. So let's go here. Let me refresh in case. Now let's log in, and as you see, you're gonna be taken here, and this is where you are going to generate the access code that we need in order to install the application. So once we install it, we are right now, it's super fast, but you do a access, you do a get request to the access token endpoint, and then you get the endpoint on your request, and then we can store it, so we can make authenticated requests. We're gonna test that right now, but let's go here to Postgres, and here DT, and now let's select everything. Okay, from sessions. And as you see, this is the access token. We have the store here, and now we can use this access token throughout the application to access resources from Shopify. So I say let's test that right now. So we authenticated the app, and let's see, if you go here to integrations, you're gonna see that now we have access to a session, so we display these. Now if you go here to your store, let's Go here to apps. You're gonna see that our application is here. So yeah, neat. So now working with a non-embedded Shopify application. Let's go back here, and now let's go back here because I want to now let's access the customers. I want to access customers. So yeah, let's delete this part. Let's delete this part. Let's delete this part. Now let's use we have to create a GraphQL query. So export const query here, and now here let's create a function. So export const get Shopify customers, and let's make an arrow function, asynchronous sync. Now here let's pass in the shop as a string. The shop is a string, and now the access token has a string as well. Now let's put this guy here, put this guy here. Let's have a try and catch. Now we need the URL, so const URL equal to here. So https / we have to access our shop. Now admin /API. API, here you have to pass in the date, so I'm gonna use the 24.10, and here let's have GraphQL.json, and yeah, that's the URL. So now let's await fetch. Now passing the URL here. Now passing here the headers, and I guess I can reuse some of this logic here. Okay, it's because I don't want to type that again. And the body here, passing your query. Now here for the const the response, and I'm forgetting the most important part. Site headers. Here you're gonna pass in your access token. So you have to pass in access the Shopify access token. Make sure you don't have any typos here. Okay, and I have a typo already here. It's 2 C's. So here, access token. Okay, good. Now let's go back here. Let's reuse this data here. So now let's grab this here. Let's grab this here. Now let's grab the customers. Customers. That's gonna come from data here. The customers. The edges here. And now let's map these guys. So edge. Just have a name here, otherwise, because we're using TypeScript and it's going to scream. So edges, and I have to have another one here. Edge and edge the node. Okay, so now let's return the customers. Okay, and that's good. Let's console log error. Okay, so now get Shopify customers. Alright, so now let's go here, and now we have to create the customers route. Just test this. So customers the index. So route .tsx. Now let me go here because we can reuse some of this logic. So customers console.log customers. Let's return here the customers. Let's require the user here. So now we have the session. Let's instead of returning the session, let's await here. Now let's get the customer, Shopify customers. So get Shopify customers here, and now let's pass in the session, the store, and now session that access token. Customers. Okay. We're gonna use in this bar. Let's go to the sidebar. Where's the layout? Here, sidebar, customers. Okay, so hopefully that works on the first try. Let's I'm excited. Let's go. Okay, integrations. So something happened there. I guess it's back. Let's see. So, okay, let's see what's happening here. So we have a fail authentication. We have to debug this guy. So let's see what's happening here. I don't see the typo here. You know what? Maybe, just maybe, we don't have the necessary scopes, because we're trying to access customer information. That happens. Let's see the API access scopes. We should have them. Don't see anything here, so let's choose a distribution. Let's choose a public distribution here. Let's go back to API access. Alright, let's request customer data here. So app functionality. I think this is the reason. Yeah. This is a bitch, because I always forget this bar. It's super easy to forget, and if you're not familiar with Shopify, this is super frustrating. You have to request the resources. Probably, I'm pretty sure, because I don't see any typo in my code. So let's see here. Yes. But I'm glad that this happened on camera, because you guys get to see it. If you have the same problem, you know why. This is the reason. So let's save it. We have 16 scopes. Let's go back here. Read all over scope. Access description. I think here. Now let's go back. And yeah, it's here actually. And yeah, now it's working. Now we get the resources. It was scopes. Oh boy. So now I'm grabbing my 4 customers from Shopify. Let me go to the store. You're gonna see that I have those customers here I created before the tutorial. But yeah, let's make it easier. Where's the route customers? Okay, last name, text, black. You're gonna see my customers here on the screen. So yeah, this is how we access resources from customers in Shopify with a non-embedded application, and that's how the authentication flow works. Okay, so I'm gonna cut the tutorial here. This is gonna be the first part, and I'm gonna see you on the second part of the tutorial. Thank you for watching.